Hello everyone, today we're going to do a tutorial about the Roland D-50 VST. So let's go for our main panel. Let's begin by taking a look at our patch diagram. A patch in D-50 consists in two sounds, or tones as Roland called them. They are the upper tone and the lower tone. Those tones, upper or lower, both have two sound sources. They can be called partials, they can be synth generated or sample generated. In our left side we have a joystick, so we can balance between upper or lower tones, which are represented by U and L. And we can also balance between lower and upper partials, more specifically partial 1 or partial 2. Next to it is our patch volume, so we can increase it or decrease it. We can also name our patch by clicking Name. And we can also scroll patches by clicking this up or down arrow. Down below we have our patch manager. We can create or delete banks, or import or export banks. We can also manage the patches called memories. We can write, rename or read using the options down below. We can also hide or show our keyboard. You can also zoom your VST by going to the options. So here we have various zoom levels. The Help menu gives you a very useful PDF. And the About just gives you a product information. Down below we have our special shades function, which plays tones in specific pattern, which I'll discuss more ahead. And finally our portamento, which gives you a very nice slide. Okay, so now let's go to the command select. Here we go to the patch. Clicking this button will expand your panel. Here you'll find the master tune that lets you adjust the pitch. You can select the whole, which lets you play 60 notes in the upper tone. And by the way, this is the mood buttons. If I select the whole mode, you won't listen to anything, because the whole mode is only playing notes in the upper tone. So let's try to unmute the upper tone. Now, if you select the dual mode, not only you can play notes in the upper tone, but you can also play notes in the lower tone. You can see how the tone changes. So in dual mode, we have our both tones played at the same time, but this limits you to 8 notes. Split mode lets you play both tones splitted on the keyboard. The split point slider lets you control the split point. So, for example, I can play some notes on above the C4 and below the C4. Whole S lets you play the upper tone monophonically. Again, because I am in whole mode, I can only play the upper tone. In dual S mode, I can only play monophonically, but I can play both the upper tones and the lower tones. Split US divided by the split point. The upper tone plays monophonically and the lower tone plays 8 polyphonic notes. Now let him play some chords. And the split LS divided by the split point. The lower tones plays monophonically and the upper tone plays 8 polyphonic notes. L and U key shift lets you shift the lower or upper tones from -24 to +24 semitones. L and U key shift lets you shift the lower or upper tones from -24 to 24 semitones. For example, let me select only the lower ones. Now, if I select the upper ones, this won't work. In fact, you won't hear any notes because I'm still in here. Now if I try to select the upper tone, this won't affect him. Tone balance have the same use as the joystick and is for balance the tones. So let me unmute this once. Down below you'll find your band range. You can set this up to 12 semitones. So if I move my pitch bend wheel, you can see how I can go from extreme ranges. Now if I decrease this one, this will be a lot smaller. The afterband is for the band produced by the aftertouch, up to 12 semitones. Next comes our portamento, so you can turn it off or on. The porta mode lets you affect both upper and lower tones or individually. So for example, we are bending both the upper and the lower tones. In this one is only the lower. And this one is only the upper. So let's leave only the lower ones. If we increase our porta time, you can see this change more drastically. Now again, if we select only the upper tones, we can hear them. But if we select the upper tone in here, we can hear them. Again with both. Quite drastic. Hold mode is useful if you have a pedal. You can hold the upper, the lower, or both tones with the pedal. And next comes a very unusual feature called chase. Imagine a delay line or arpeggio. You can turn it on or off. If I play a simple pattern, you can see this sequence. We can control the pattern using this slider. We can control so the upper tone plays first, then the lower one, then the upper one. Or you can select it only to play the upper one first, then the lower ones. Let me just remove the slide for this one. Or you can only have up and low. The chase level determines the duration. So you have 100. In up or low, we don't listen to it, but if you go to other modes, you can listen to this effect. If you go to other modes, you can listen to this effect. Output mode lets you select from 4 stereo options for the sound output. So if you want only the lower tone in the left channel or the reverb, this is the way to get it. Let me test some output options. Let me put a little bit reverb. Again, as you can see, we can select whether upper or lower tones are designated to reverb. And this creates quite a stereo effect. The reverb section have a large selection of algorithms that you can choose from with the reverb type slider. You can choose from a dry or wet sound with the reverb balance slider. Here is the total algorithms. The total volume is the same as in the panel. Now let's go to the command select lower or upper one. Let's choose the lower one. This is the same as the upper one. So first off, we have the structure. This is the designation of these algorithms that you can see below. We can choose them with this slider. The structure lets you select several algorithms or structures, so the partials can be set-generated, that are represented with a S, sample-generated, which are represented by a P, or a mix of both, and an option of ring modulation. The ring modulation is represented by a R. Let's choose for now both synth modes, S and S. Part balance is the same function as the joystick, so you can balance the partials. Here you can see that you can go from the partial 1 to the partial 2. Let's mute the upper one. If you go to the left, you can only hear one of the partials. In this case, is a square wave. But if we go to the partial 2, we can select a sawtooth. The LFO depth applies a pitch modulation from LFO 1. So if we go up, we hear a slight modulation. Let's go increase a little bit of the rate. The lever lets you control the pitch mod amount using the mod wheel. After is for controlling this amount with aftertouch. LFO 1, 2 and 3 have 4 waveforms that you can choose from. Here we have the triangle, the saw, the square one, and the random. We can also select the rate, or you can delay the signal. You can also synchronize the LFO cycle to the keyboard. This sync can occur depending on the mode selected, when all keys have been selected, or when a new key is played. The pitch envelope is not your typical ADSR envelope. T1 to T4 controls the timing, and L0 to L2 controls the amplitude. You can also control the sustain and end level. So let's just increase a little bit of the delay of the tempo 1. And if we increase some of the amplitude, for example the L1, like you can see in this algorithm over here. If we choose this one with a small tempo, we can hear the effect. Here you can see that it goes up and down. We can also sustain the effect. Let's play this one too. We also can affect this one with the velocity. So if I press slower notes, you won't hear much of the effect. If I press faster notes, you can hear the effect. So you can say that velocity determines the amount of pitch bend according to how fast you press the keys. I forgot to talk about TKF. TKF means that the timing is affected by the keyboard. For example, lower notes are slower and higher notes are faster. If I go from the lower notes into the faster ones, we can see that tempo is changed. Let's reduce this one again and increase it. You can see the drastic effect. You also have a 2-band parametric EQ, so you can adjust the low frequencies and higher frequencies. Frequency slider controls the frequency, Q controls how wide is the curve, and gain the amplitude. So for example, let's play some notes. You can see how bass boost you can have. And you can also lift the highs or lower them. You can see how the Q changes the wideness. You also have a chorus effect. Various algorithms can be selected with a type slider. Let's hear them. can control the speed using the rate slider, and the amount can be controlled with the depth slider. And you can select how much dry or wet with the balance slider. You can also name your tone with the tone name at your right. Okay, so now let's go for the partial select, lower and upper. Let's choose the lower one. Let's go to the wave generator pitch section. Now with coarse, I can control the pitch of the partial that can go from C1 to C7. Fine tune. We can also have the keyboard follow. Specifies the key follow pitch ratio. You can, for example, cross 2 octaves in only 12 notes by selecting 2, for example. Now normal scale. For the LFO mode, you can choose to have no modulation by the LFO, for example in off position, or you can have modulation by the LFO in a positive phase, or the LFO phase can start inverted. You can also select to obtain vibrato only by the aftertouch in bender wheel with the A and L. You can also select modes for the pitch envelope. In off mode there is no modulation. If you select the plus mode, the modulation uses a normal envelope. And in negative mode, the envelope is inverted. Let's test this one. So let's choose the off mode, no pitch, positive mode, and negative mode. The blend mode defines if you don't want any modulation by the pitch wheel in off mode, or if you want to be modulated, you can use the normal mode, that is this one, so you can see the pitch band. Okay, so if we set the mode for key follow, and we set this one for 0, even if we have our band range and 12 semitones, we won't hear any effect. We won't hear any effect on the chorus. So no pitch will occur. But if we set the key F for example 1, or for example small value, we can set the pitch range using this value too. Okay, so next let's talk about wave generator. We have the typical square wave, or a sawtooth. We can control the pulse width with the pulse width slider. This can also be controlled in sawtooth mode. The pulse width can also be controlled by velocity. If I press slower keys or harder keys, we can hear the effect. The aftertouch also can control the pulse width. You can select which LFO will modulate the pulse width, LFO 1, 2 or 3, with positive or negative phase. So let's try LFO 2 for example. So the pulse width depth controls the range. Now I can also control a PCM sample. Because I am in synth mode, I cannot choose a PCM slider, but this can change. Let's select a different structure. For example, this one. Now you can select a PCM sample, marimba sound, or other type of different instruments. You also can have special loops. Can choose also this menu. Okay, so now let's go to the TVF section. We can control the cutoff with this slider. We can also add some resonance. And the key follow is much the same as the key follow in the pitch section. In this case, it's a filter key follow. Bias point selects breakpoint of the keyboard for level adjustment. Bias level is the respective amplitude, negative or positive. Let's try it out. Envelope depth controls the amount of envelope modulation. The envelope can also be modulated by velocity. Slower notes or harder notes. The filter can be modulated by LFO 1, 2 or 3, the same way as described at the WG waveform. So let's try it out. After range is the cutoff controlled by the aftertouch. TVF and TVA envelopes are controlled by time and L amplitude or level. You can take a clearer view by looking at the diagram. Let's do a simple test on the envelope. So T1 is the tech. Now let's get a little decay. Let's set the release time. TKF is special mode that affects the time. Higher notes make the envelope faster. Again in normal mode. GKF is an envelope depth key follow. Lower notes get more envelope modulation for the filter. The T1 velocity affects the envelope timing of a TVA. So let's test it out. Again, if I press them slower, the envelope is a lot slower. If I press them faster, the envelope gets faster. Now for the TVA. Level sets the volume for the partial. The volume can also be influenced by velocity and can get inverted if negative. Again, if I press them slower or harder, or slower or harder, they get inverted. Bias point sets the reference key and bias level decreases the volume. Lower notes or higher notes gets volume attenuated according to the selection. For example, let's choose a crossover here. And let's set the volume to negative. As you can see, if I go to lower notes, the volume gets a lot lower. LFO 1, 2 or 3 can modulate the TVA again. The LFOs can be phase inverted. LFO depth controls the amount of LFO modulation. The depth can also be affected by the aftertouch. So once again, thank you for watching and see you next time.